It's showtime! Ow!
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show. Once again, I am director, actor, writer Jason
Durgana.
Hang on. I never got to do this yet. I am an award-winning director, actor, writer Jason Durgana, director of The Show Must Go On, and I am joined by here the author of the upcoming book Anagnorisis, my good friend, Mr. Daniel Scarcello.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, man, I'm just proud to be here.
Thank you. Looking forward to it.
Yeah. We're going to be talking about everything, not only writing, but we're going to be talking about the adaptation process of it. Writing from pen and pad through the editing, completion, and then, of course, publication. And now we're moving on to adaptations, maybe stage play, teleplay, even screenplay, just like The Show Must Go On. We're going to be talking all about that, doing a deep dive into that world. But first, take a look at my brand new movie, The Show Must Go On.
But I really wanted to quit because
When you work with somebody so long,
It's your other
It's
fan.
one of the best experiences
I'll never.
It's something that I've always
Show started.
Having a whole auditorium full of people crying.
went into a shutdown.
It's completely dark, it's completely quiet, we're all gone, and we're not coming back.
Okay, so we are back and we're live, and I'm actually here in Casa del Scarcello.
Yes, sir.
Can I call it that?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Yes, sir.
I thank you for having me.
No,
man.
thank you for coming.
Yeah.
Thank you for. I'm on your show, so we should note that as well. So thank you for having me.
Yeah. Hey, man, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Honestly, the first round we went, I like calling it rounds, not just because we're having a few drinks, but also because hey, we're fight guys, we're fight fans,
Yeah.
Wrestlers at the end of the day, it's based on rounds.
Absolutely.
So this is round 2 here, and we're talking. The first time was primarily author to author, talking about writing books, editing, the publication process, which now you're in,
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
Yeah, you're getting to the point, you just finished editing?
So I just finished editing a book with my first editor,
Yeah.
and I have a second editor lined up in August. So it'll be another round of editing, and in the next month or two, we should be good to go.
That's
to
killer,
start
man.
pitching it.
Yeah.
So I mean, my first editor recommended that I get somebody else to take a look at it. She said it's always good to have multiple people read your work, so you get a range of opinion regarding it. So that she was my first editor, and it was an amazing experience. And now we're getting ready for round 2.
There you go.
Yeah.
Hey, I like that, man. That's actually really well thought out.
Yeah.
You're doing this with the whole editing process, and that's actually really fascinating to me because we were kind of touching on this in the first round, and now even a little bit when we're off camera, off mic. But do you ever fear possibly losing your creative voice the more editors that you go through?
Yeah, well, I went into it having that fear, right? Because it really is about confidence, right? Because the editor, depending on what type of editing service you're using, they're not just going to change the text; they're going to make suggestions, right? And so you have this instinct to just accept every single suggestion they make. She says, you should use this word instead of that word. Okay, change it. This person shouldn't say that. Okay, get rid of it. So now you have to be so confident in your story that you know when they're right and when they're wrong, right? And so I think there is, you enter it just wanting to listen to them. You think they're the savior. They're going to teach you how to write.
That's right.
Right? And you're going to learn a ton from them. But it's also your story.
Yeah.
And they can't tell you what your story should be at a fundamental level.
No, of course.
Right? So I think it's really about learning how to navigate that terrain.
Yeah.
So,
And I absolutely agree with you because every book that I've written, I've authored, I guess I can say, because we're going to get into screenwriting and television writing and live stage writing in a minute. But like every book that I've authored, I always go back to the first one that I wrote, which is 35 millimeter, which is the foundation of The Show Must Go On. And that one, I have two different editors. And the one thing that I was very happy for and very grateful for was that they helped me keep my voice. They understood what I was going for, because they understood that, you know, on one case, a lot of it was very vulgar, but it had to match the time frame that we're in. And I mean, like, when I was writing that, and it had to match the time frame. So they allowed me to keep my voice while editing the book for what it is, you know. And it's not just grammar, but it's also about flow. It's also about the way that you write. And so I was always very grateful for that. When I wrote my second book, I couldn't get them. And so I had the opportunity to go to another independent editor. And the ideas that she gave me were so anti my voice that I've never used the editor since.
Wow.
So 7 books later, 7 books later.
Oh my God.
I've never used an editor since. And like a lot of people, there are a lot of people who think that's insane, because it's like, how can you write and not have an editor? Yeah. I'll edit it myself, because now I've always had that instilled in me where it's like, man, that they could steal my voice. Like, and I can't have that, because that's the point of the book, is that it's not just, you know, my literal voice, but it's my tone, it's my intonation, it's people understand my sarcasm, they understand the joking side of it. And even if you've never met me before, you kind of get a flavor of it in the writing. Once you take that flavor out, now you have no idea what exactly I'm trying to go for here. Yeah. So I always kind of kept that away from me. But is that concerning to you or no? Like that?
Well, no, absolutely. I think a good editor would be highly conscious of that. Like if I'm editing someone's book, I wouldn't want to take away their voice.
Of course.
So you gotta, I think you have to make sure you're with an editor who understands that and is on the same page. So it's really a question of fit. So you gotta, it sounds like with your early editors, you guys clicked.
Absolutely.
But with your second editors, it didn't work out. No. So I think it's just really, it's like casting, right?
Yeah.
They just have to suit your work.
Yeah.
You know, but voice, voice is huge. Some of my favorite writers, if you plucked a sentence from one of their books and just texted it to me, I'd be like, oh yeah, that's Henry Miller.
Really?
Right? Voice.
Oh,
just because
they
know that, I know their voice. So yeah, like if you're gonna sacrifice your voice for whatever reason, it's like no way, because it's everything. It's everything, right?
That's funny, because now I'm going to actually do this. I'm going to find a book.
And
just
right,
But like, I totally understand what you're saying, because at the end of the day, it's not just the sake of writing for writing.
Yeah,
it's your story.
Yeah,
and like in the beautiful thing in round 1 was we're talking about from me, a nonfiction writer, which is everything I've written was nonfiction.
Yeah,
it's based on some sort of reality. Your first book coming out is fiction, which, by the way, before we get into this, I'm going to finish this train of thought. But mean, you want to keep your voice, whether it's nonfiction or nonfiction. Before we continue on, I want everyone to know one more time, what's the name of your book, man?
Oh, yeah.
And everything.
Yeah.
You got to get all this.
So the name, so my novel is called Anagnorisis.
Yeah.
And so there's a very specific reason it's called that, so I do apologize. But the Anagnorisis is the part of a story when the main character makes a critical discovery. It usually involves them finding their true identity, and so there's a lot built into that concept.
Yeah.
So
I know for a fact it's a huge part of the book, so we're not going to get into that concept. But you do have a great example of that, right? And I mean, what is it Oedipus? Is that what it is?
Oh, this is like the classic example, right? So Oedipus in Greek mythology, he kills his father and marries his mother. His anagnorisis, his moment of recognition, is when he discovers that truth.
There you go.
So it's very similar to an epiphany. It's just this kind of aha moment.
Yeah.
And it usually signifies a reversal of fortune. So, when Oedipus figures out that he's married to his mother, things are not looking good for him anymore, right? So, but it could also go the other way.
That's right.
It could be the best thing for you, right?
Yeah.
And I think based on some of the chats we've had, there's a lot of it's not a negative concept.
No.
It can be, but it could be the best thing that ever happened to you.
No, absolutely. You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
And for those of you who want to know more about not just the book, but also the writing process of how I've written, how this gentleman Daniel has written, my good buddy, man, my friend.
Yeah.
By all means, listen to round 1. Check out round 1. You're going to enjoy it. We're going to be talking a little bit about that as well. But I do know that you had a bunch of questions that you wanted to ask me when we finished recording round 1. You had so many questions you wanted to ask about filmmaking that it was like, well, we have to have a round 2. And sort of the funny thing is that there's infinite rounds. There has to be a round 3 because when your book finally is released, the show must go on is pretty much going to be released. So, we're going to be in a position where we have both of our things out at the same time. We're going to have to record a round 3 then as well.
100%. It's crazy. So, part of the concept behind this podcast was this idea that we're in both of us are in an interesting time in our lives.
Yeah.
You're on the verge of releasing a film, and talking about interesting timing since the last time we recorded to today, you have won an award.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, I know. I gotta say, I have to bring that up because it fits in with this timing.
Yeah.
So the Toronto Independent Film Festival Best Documentary.
That's right.
The Show Must Go On. Jason Durgana. I'm just like, what?
Thank you so much, man.
Because oh my God, we're talking about timing, and this is such a strange time. We're in this middle ground. 1 week later, and he's got an award under his belt.
It's crazy. It really
insane.
is.
Congratulations,
Thank you so much, man. Thank you. By the way, thanks,
don't do that. Thank you.
Yes, that's the sound of us giving a cheers. Thank you, man. I really do appreciate that, buddy.
Yeah. Well, so now there were so many things I wanted to ask you because my dream is to write novels.
Yeah.
And I don't have images in my head. I have to wrestle to take the ideas I have and turn them into images. So I was curious to talk to you because you just, completed a visual project.
Yes.
Right?
That's
so
right.
And based on your writing. Yeah. So you kind of come at it from both angles. So I was very interested to pick your brain about that kind of thing.
And the funny thing is we're going from, and we kind of briefly touched on the first one, right? And leading into this, but the idea of writing with potential of adaptation, because that's really kind of the key in this whole thing is how do you adapt something, or if you do plan on adapting something. And I remember we did speak about Anagnorisis in that sense too, because we did kind of speak about, there's potential for a sequel, potential for a trilogy, an anthology, an entire set. There's potential. I'm happy for you for that, by the way.
Yeah.
We also had a great discussion about what we determine as success. Because a lot of people, they have different ideas of what their version of success is. And once again, we're just reiterating quickly, your idea of success is?
Well, yeah. For me, it's about winning the ability to write full time, right? And, as I'm approaching the completion of my first novel, I now understand what it takes to master your craft. And it's a hell of a lot of time.
Yeah.
So I don't consider myself a master at this point. You've done close to 7 books.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm done 1. So I'm not a master, but I think I know what it takes to become a master, and it's going to take time.
Yeah.
So if I could win that time, then I could become a master. Maybe in 10 years.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So that's my goal.
Yeah.
So that for me is success. Being able to do this full time.
That's right.
And see what you could do with it.
And sort of the beauty of living your dream as the full-time job.
Yeah.
Right? Because that's always the hardest thing, especially for very creative people like you and I. There's so many out there where it's I always used to look at it as my dream is my habit. You know how some people, you always hear the old saying from documentaries where people have a drug habit. They have a drug habit. I have a dream habit, and me working every day is how I'd feed that habit. Because it was just it's not paying my bills. I can't do this every day. I can't do it for a living. I have to do something else for a living. I've got a full-time and a part-time job so that I can live this dream to feed that habit, and that's how it gets done. And like, I totally see where you're coming from in that sense. Like, that really is success.
Yeah.
Being able to do that.
Because okay, so I don't know the details of the production of your film, but I know you suffered for it.
Yeah,
I know it was hard. I don't have to know much.
Yeah.
I saw that trailer, and I know like a lot of work went into it. And so how do you sustain that, right? How do you sustain that if you're squeezing in an hour here, an hour there, right? In general, right? So, like for me, I think a big part of becoming a great writer is reading a hell of a lot.
Yes.
Well, I think Stephen King said. I think they asked him, what does it take to become a great writer? And he said something like, you have to read for 4 hours a day and write for 4 hours a day. Okay. Well, give me 4 hours.
Yeah, exactly.
Tell me 4 hours. Where do you have 4 hours?
4 hours.
Right?
Right, yeah. And that's it. And then you add that up. You read for 4, write for 4. That's 8 hours. That's literally that's a work day.
Yeah, you want to eat, don't you?
Yeah, that's your job. Yeah, exactly, right? So, I mean, like, you're right. It absolutely was. It was a challenge, 0.5, if you want to call it that. And, like, I'll be completely honest with you. I mean, like, it was so difficult to sustain and to live that and to keep living that and to keep doing it night in, night out, day in, day out, week in, week out. The entire run for the production from starting, which was, I wouldn't say pen to pad because that was 35 millimeter writing it.
Yeah.
But the idea of actually, okay, this is how we're going to begin production. This is how I'm going to tell the story, all the way to finally it's completed. Now I can submit it. That was just around 17 months.
Wow.
So, I mean, it's a 17-month marathon, and the problem is that you're not running at a marathoner's pace. You're running at a sprint pace.
Yeah.
For 17 months. It easily took 5 years off the end of my life. It easily. Like, there's no question in my mind. And, like, how do you sustain... It's a funny question because we were kind of talking about this beforehand about my fight career and my fight background.
Yeah.
And, like, I've always kind of tried to tell people, because I've come across so many different people from so many different walks of combat life, like combat sports. And, like, I have a huge military family. I've got family in the Marines, in the Navy, the military, the Air Force. One of the things that's fun when we get together is we trade stories, which is incredible because they've got real, like, military stories.
Sure, yeah.
And then they're entertained by me because they're like, well, like, what was it like in that fight? And I'm just like, you guys really, don't you guys, like, do, like, things with guns? Like, you're curious about my fight in a cage?
Yeah.
But it's like, the reason why is because there is such a mindset of how grueling whatever this sport, like cage fight, MMA, boxing, amateur wrestling. I've won gold medals in amateur wrestling. It's the most grueling sport in the world. And it really is designed to break you down mentally before it breaks you down physically. Like, it is designed to do that. I have seen, there's an old saying, anyone who's trained amateur wrestling, I think they're going to smile at this because it's an old saying everywhere, worldwide, which is what happens in the wrestling room literally stays in the wrestling room. And it's the same thing as Vegas, but it's not like the sort of the debauchery of going to Las Vegas. It's like, I've seen grown men break down and cry in the amateur wrestling room because they just couldn't win. Like, it was like they had been broken down mentally to the point where they gave up. And it was like, what do I do? Like, I just keep losing. I keep getting beaten. And, like, that's what happens. And it just builds up this mental toughness. Now, for me, I've been in combat sports for pretty much my whole life. Like, all I ever wanted to do was combat sports. Yeah. And I've competed and played and trained in and practiced in and lived the most violent combat sports that, if football, right? American football. Yeah. But then amateur wrestling and Muay Thai and Jiu-Jitsu and boxing and pro wrestling. I've done all of them.
So what did you do in cage matches? When you were in the cage?
Yeah.
What were you doing then?
So that's mixed martial arts.
That's MMA. Okay, so
that's
MMA.
So that's like famously the UFC, right?
Okay.
But it's like, it's a combination of all of those things, right? And it's like, all of that builds a mental toughness that you have, that by the time I'm here now, if someone says that it's a normal person you get to spend 17 months doing something that you want to do, but it is going to suck. And it is going to drain you.
Yeah.
And you are not going to enjoy it. After 1 week, you will not enjoy it. It's just going to be like a job. I guarantee you 99% of people would just they'd throw in the towel and be like, I'm not going to do it. It's just going to kill my love for this thing.
Yeah.
Who wants to do this for over like a year and a half? That's insane, you know?
Yeah.
And to me, it was like I knew when I started, it's like, this is not going to go for 2 months. Like, this is going to go a long haul. You know, like from the very first day I started working on The Show Must Go On, I knew right away that this is going to be at least a year's worth of work.
Wow.
And that was from the first day. I knew that's day one of 365 plus. And it was like, well, do you throw in the towel now? Because that would be the smart thing. You cut your losses now so you don't waste the next year plus.
Yeah.
Or do you actually go with this? And I just did it to the point of mental toughness, which was one day at a time. Let me survive. If I can survive today, I've earned tomorrow. If I can survive tomorrow, I've earned the day after that. And like I did that for just under 18 months. It was like 17 months and 2 weeks or whatever it was.
Wow.
So like the actual submission time for the movie.
Wow. So, okay, was there a moment that it was overwhelming and you not that you wanted to quit, but like you could see how somebody might want to quit.
Oh, absolutely.
At that point.
Yeah. And I think that's the cool thing because we can talk about that from artist to artist here. And not only author to author, but writer to writer, because there was a screenwriting adaptation I did.
Yeah.
And there's potential for you, you know, without like trying to like steal your thunder or put it in your mind.
No.
But there's always potential. We spoke about in round one that you could always adapt this into something, maybe a stage play, a TV show, TV series, a movie.
Yeah.
You can do that with Anagnorisis, right? And it's like when I wrote 35mm, I wrote it so descriptively that I did it with the mindset of how this movie would be made if I was going to make a movie out of it.
Okay, yeah.
And like, so when it came to time to doing it, it was a very weird situation because I thought to myself for years, one day, I started writing 35mm Volume 1 in 2014. When I first put pen to pad, I was like, one day it will be made into a movie. One day, and I have to make it so descriptive and so correct that as we touched on around one, I talked about the amnesia scenario, right? You know? But I always thought about if it gets made, I want someone to read it, and it has to be made exactly how I want it to be done.
Yeah.
So I have to be as descriptive as I can because I actually didn't see myself being a part of the movie. I was so convinced that someone else would make the movie. Like they would read the book and they'd say, this is a great book. I want to adapt this into a movie. Who's the author?
Yeah.
Jason Durgana? Cut him a check and then get him out of here.
Yeah.
Like now it's ours and we do what we want with it. That's what I was convinced in 2014 that was going to happen.
And that guided you while you were writing.
Yes.
So you consciously were thinking in those terms as you wrote.
Absolutely, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and that book was written, there's so much description. It was like the paint on the walls. I explained what color it was. It was chipped. It was this many years aged. Like, it was done to that point that I was convinced nobody's ever going to give me a shot to make a movie. You know, like nobody, and it's the same thing with you, right? When I was writing that book then, and you wrote your book now, nobody gave us a shot at writing a book. It wasn't a case of like, hey, I think you can write me a book and I'll fund you to do it.
Yeah.
Nobody does that, right? It's kind of like you got to earn your right to do that. The whole thing, the fight to do what you want to do. And I was just like, they're never going to give me an opportunity to do it. Oh, wait a minute. They never gave me an opportunity to write this, and I'm like 3 chapters in.
Yeah.
Let me just finish it. And I wrote it with the idea that, well, it'll get made. I was convinced it's eventually going to get made into a movie. I've done a good enough job writing it.
Yeah.
It just won't be me doing it. And you fast forward 7 years later, and it's like, you know, circumstances are, it's synchronicities. It's so coincidental. It's like things all of a sudden happen where it's like, wait, this can be made. And talk about the craziest of scenarios. I'm not only going to be a part of it, I can actually be the guy who makes it.
Yeah.
Like, never expected that to happen.
So it's like you wrote the book, 35mm. You wrote it almost as if it was a blueprint for somebody to take it and make a movie out of it. And then you're at a certain point, and this is me reconstructing this. This may not be accurate, but at a certain point, you looked at it and you said, "This will be a movie, but there's only one man who could do this job, and you do it."
Yeah.
And it's kind of like that, right?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
But I love how you actually, that right there, that's the author, and you're right there. You totally reconstruct. That was perfect, because that one word you said was exactly it. It was a blueprint.
So it was a blueprint.
It was a complete blueprint. Without thinking about it, that's what it was that I had written for someone else.
Okay, so that fascinates me. So you're writing 35 millimeter. I gotta find the best way to phrase this. What I'm curious about is images in your head. So I'm thinking, okay, imagine a musician. So I always wonder about musicians. Do they hear the song playing in their head, and then they translate it into this world through an instrument?
Yeah.
Or through it. So you're writing this book. You have a vision for a film in the future. So you have images in your head. Like, do you see scenes or shots in your mind? And how did that play out during the writing process?
Absolutely. 100%. Exactly as you're saying it, that's exactly what it was. I had the imagery of every shot, of every scene. The actual ends of... I think my agent would be pissed if I actually revealed this, but... So I'm going to talk. We
got lawyers here. Your lawyer is off camera. He's waving us down. He's flagging it.
He's like, "Don't do it. Don't do it. You're out of your mind." No, it was 35 millimeter. When I finished the book, I then adapted it myself into a television series, which we kind of spoke about off air. And it was like, I adapted it with the idea that it's going to be a TV series. It was going to be 7 seasons long. That's how I envisioned it.
Wow.
I wrote the television encyclopedia, is like the slang term of it. It's the entire series, the series encyclopedia per se. And that's what I thought. 7 seasons long. I have exactly what I want to do. This is how I want to do this. When I wrote the book, by the time I finished the book, I knew this is going to be a TV series because it's too long to be a movie. The book is so intricate, it can't be combined in 90 minutes, right? I'm going to do this in a television series. The actual ending, that final series, the series finale, from top to bottom, I timed out in my head visually to the minute exactly how I envisioned it was going to be done.
For 7 seasons.
The series finale.
The series finale.
Yeah. I mean, for the 7 seasons, you write, like, the slang terms, the series encyclopedia, which really is an encyclopedia per se, in the sense of, like, you write down, the pilot episode, and it's like everything, every character, what they're wearing, what they're saying, because eventually, when you get to season 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, what they wore in season 1, the pilot episode, comes back to play. So you know exactly what's going to happen, right?
Okay.
But that series finale at the end of season 7, to the minute, I envisioned the actual episode, the entire 59 minutes.
Wow.
I envisioned exactly how it was going to go down because I knew exactly what I wanted. Like, this book was written this way, and it's going to tell this story, and it's going to end with this episode, and that's why I'm saying it's probably not a smart thing to do to reveal that, because if it ever does become a series, that's probably going to be the ending of the episode. But I mean, but that idea of the episode and how it was going to end, and how it was going to visually go down, and I have it down to a T. Not only did I have it down to a T, a funny thing is, I've never told anyone this before, telling you this, that final sequence of the movie, I actually timed it out to music. So it wasn't
that blows my mind.
It wasn't just me envisioning what I was going to do. The final sequences of the show, I had a song in mind, which I'll reveal, it's Bohemian Rhapsody. I had that song in mind, and it was like, it's going to cue up exactly with the song, because there's a meaning earlier in the series to that song and how it connects. And I had it down to a T, and I knew exactly what I was going to do visually if it ever became a show.
Wow. Man, okay, that's incredible for so many reasons. First, okay, do you have to mentally wrestle to get that? So let me clarify. In my head, while I'm writing, I'm thinking, in this scene, this character realizes that he loves this woman, right?
Right.
That's not a visual thing, right? That's like a concept. It's a conceptual
That's right,
thing. So
that's right.
I have that in my head. That's what comes naturally to me. And then I have to wrestle and translate that into an image so a reader or viewer could experience that. But it's a fight for me. So I start with the concept, which is not a fight. It just pops into my head. And then it's a long, grueling process to turn it into something, let's say, that could be filmable. So when I hear you say that, like, do you go through that? Do you start with the concept and you gotta fight to get that? Or does it come like as a neat package and just pops into your head?
I think it all draws from everything that you were, as you spoke about, Anagnorisis, where you're collecting synchronicities in your life. It's all the experiences and different sort of coincidences that you kind of collect throughout your life that it builds you to the point where, it built me to the point where it's not natural to do it for everything, but if there's something in particular that I'm working on, it's absolutely natural for me. I totally see it in my head how exactly I want it to be done, and then I write it. And it's actually the same thing. I wrote the song The Final Hour, which I sing and perform. The first time I ever sang a song.
Oh, wow.
And I wrote it, I performed it, it's in the movie, The Show Must Go On. And it was the exact same idea where it was like, this. I was writing it in my head before I even picked up the guitar or the piano. Before I touched the piano. Like I knew exactly how it was going to sound. I knew exactly what I was going to say. But in this case, visually, I totally had the idea of how it was going to look. I knew exactly what I wanted. I knew on top of that too, there's a visual psychology in films, and that's filmmaking and storytelling go hand in hand. It's peanut butter and jelly, and it's like I knew that to tell the story, there had to be a visual psychology. So in the movie, before I even picked up the camera, I knew right away I'm going to play with colors. These colors signify different emotions. They evoke certain emotions. So it's not a spoiler. I think someone actually I mentioned it, and it's like on IMDb now. It's already made its rounds, but like the color red evokes a certain emotion. So when you see red in the movie, you expect this emotion. The color blue evokes another emotion. So when you see blue, it evokes a different emotion. Yeah. And that was all done primarily not just because I understand psychology and I understand the idea of color and color palette, but like I'm a student in the game, right? I mean, as a writer, for you have like a whole litany of authors that you probably read, you enjoy. For sure. The average person probably only knows maybe 2 or 3 of those names. You must have an entire list. Because you're a student of the game. For sure. Yeah. I'm a student of the game. I know every major movie I've ever enjoyed. I know so much about it. The idea of the colors was taken from The Godfather because every time the color orange or the fruit orange shows up, it's a foreshadow of death. I don't know if anyone's ever paid attention to that.
Well, he's eating this where, especially when Vito dies.
That's right, yeah.
Eating the oranges.
The potential hit on him. In the market, they knock over the basket of
fruit.
It's a foreshadow that death is coming, right? So it's like, I'm a huge fan of these films. I'm a student of the game. I understood, okay, they did it with the fruits. I'm going to do it with the color. Yeah. Like, that's what I'm going to do. And like, so for me, before I even touch a camera, before I even start writing it as a movie, as a screenplay, before I start doing anything, I visually already decided how this is going to go with the psychology of the story before I even start the filmmaking process. Wow. Yeah, and it's a weird thing because there's so many things you start to forget that it's like I almost have to remind myself, oh yeah, wait a minute. There's a reason why this character is looking in this direction. There's a reason why this character walks in this direction. And what I'm saying, these are all hints to people who are going to see the movie. Like everything was done with intent. There's 2 characters as an example. There's 2 people where, and this is a funny behind the scenes story, which I guess I'm going to be telling them throughout this companion series, but there are two individuals. One of them was very, very gracious and was like, whatever I wanted, you want me to look in this direction and wear sunglasses? I'll do it. I'm your guy. Yeah. And the other guy was a complete jerk and was just like, he would not, and
this is a friend, right?
Yeah, he's supposed to be a friend. But he wouldn't take any direction. And it's like, I'm directing the movie. I'm directing you in the movie. Take my direction. And it was like he didn't want to do it. He was like, well, how about if I do it my way? And it's like, no, clown, I know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And the reason why it was done is because they're supposed to, when you see the two side by side, they're supposed to look like a mirror image. It was designed to be that way.
Yeah.
I had them looking in a specific direction so that it would look like a mirror image.
Yeah.
And they didn't have that idea. But that was well before I picked up a camera. Like, I knew already, these guys are going to look this way. It's going to be done that way.
So there's like an architecture to it.
Yeah.
It's like a visual architecture. Like you're mapping it out. You know where the nuts and bolts go in advance.
Yes.
Right? So it's not like you know, you hear other like filmmakers, like they kind of experiment on the spot.
Yeah.
Doesn't sound like that was your technique, at least with this project.
No.
This was mapped out.
Yeah,
like this was like a military operation.
Yeah.
Really, right? Because you
yeah.
knew exactly where you were going to strike.
Yeah.
Right?
I knew exactly. And the only time that I had to experiment was because it's the double-edged sword, right? The only reason why I had the opportunity to direct this movie is the same reason that almost killed me directing it, was we're living in a pandemic. If we weren't in a pandemic, I would not have made this movie. It's like, it's point blank. It just is what it is, because there would have been better filmmakers, better writers, but probably not better authors, but better screenwriters for the role than the guy who wrote the book that they're going to adapt from. And we're in a pandemic where the entire industry, the entire world shuts down.
Yeah.
Well, when there's no other available option, automatically I become the best available screenwriter. I become the best available director, the best available cameraman. So there are situations where it's like, oh great, I get to do this movie. Then I show up to the set and it's like, oh yeah, there's like a global restriction on having anyone else here.
Yeah.
So now I have to be director, cameraman, writer, and actor all at the same time. And it's like, well, how the hell do you do that? Oh, it's like, and if I'm too far away from the camera, I can't be heard. So I have to be an audio engineer as well. I'm doing this all alone.
Yeah.
That's totally experimental. It's totally trial and error, because it's like, well, I'm not allowed to have anyone else here on set, because there's literally a global restriction on having people on a set.
Oh my God.
You got to do it on your own. So it was funny how that worked out, because it's not supposed to be like that.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, this is a project that wasn't supposed to be in the first place anyways.
Okay, but I have to believe that that's at least part of what made the film so great.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
So theoretically, you could have handed off the screenplay to another director in another time period who didn't have those obstacles. I believe, like my gut tells me, it would not have been as good. There's a magic to that. The chaos of it, like that sounds stressful. Like you're the director, you're shooting, you're in 5 places at once.
Yeah.
But I have to believe that in that chaos, like some magic happens. Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
You know, that's art. That's what's miraculous about it.
You're right, man.
You know?
And again, I mean, like synchronicity, anagnorisis, it's like, it's one of those moments where you have that moment of realization that it's like, it's so, I think magic is a great word. I think you just chose. It's so magical that it's like, it's not supposed to happen. To the common mind, it shouldn't happen, but for some reason it's happening. And then the craziest thing of all was I did it, and there's this fear of validation, which I'm sure you're going through if you haven't already.
That's there
with your book, because you're always like, man, I wonder if it's as good as I think it is. You know, I wonder if I wrote this as well as I think it did.
Yeah.
And like, I finished the movie and I started submitting it to different major festivals around the world, and it's like, I wonder if they're gonna see what I saw, if they're gonna understand what I went through, if they're gonna look at it and be like, oh, this is a great documentary, or if they're gonna look at it and be like, who is this experimental clown, like trying to, like, what's this guy wasting time with here?
Yeah.
He stole 90 minutes of her life, you're not gonna get it back.
Yeah.
And I was carrying that, I don't want to say albatross, but it kind of was. It was like the sword of Damocles, right?
Sure.
Happy is the head that wears the crown.
Sure.
You're carrying that pressure because everybody wants to celebrate you when you succeed, but nobody wants to be with you when you fail.
Yeah.
And it's like, if this thing fails, it's on me. It's all on me. And I was carrying that for like the last few weeks, and how coincidental that literally a few days ago before we agreed. Like we had agreed to do this episode, and then just like 2-3 days ago, I find out it's like not only is it nominated, it's the winner for best documentary. It's an award-winning documentary, which is like it releases the albatross. Now there's a freedom where it's like, oh my gosh, it actually is as good as I thought it was.
Yeah.
You know, and that's like, that alone is where you're kind of like, that alone was kind of the Anagnorisis for me. That moment of realization where I was like, I'm onto something here. This wasn't just an accident. This was all meant to be. There was some magic here to this. It was all meant to be this way.
Yeah, and I think that's a big part of it. So it wasn't a shot in the dark. It wasn't like you threw this together and you're like, let's see what happens.
Yeah.
You knew in your heart that this was good, that you found something.
Yeah.
Right? Now you're going to wait and see what the world thinks.
That's right.
So when you get this award, it's not like it is good. It's like, no, I knew it.
That's right.
I knew it was good. And not in an ego way.
No.
Right? That's part of the artistic journey.
Yeah.
But you knew it was good because that's why you put 17 months in.
Yes.
And suffered for it
Yeah.
because you found something.
Yeah.
Right? So it's interesting. It's not. I think what fascinates me about it, because I've never gone through it, but it's not like you're learning. Oh, it is good. You're learning something that you already knew.
Yes.
Inside.
That's
it's
right.
like, okay, good.
Yeah.
Like, thank you. You know, I mean, I gotta ask you. Like, so I didn't know much about, what was involved in submitting films to film festivals.
Yes.
And things like that. And you were telling me, you submit a film, you're waiting for months. It could be in some cases to hear back. And like, do you want to? Can I ask you about that?
Yeah.
Like,
Absolutely.
so it's like, so you submit the film.
Yeah.
Then what happens?
So
like, until you find out something.
So in a strange way, it's kind of like, because I'm a sports guy, right? I'm a combat sports guy. I alluded to at the beginning, and it's like everything to me is like sports. So it's kind of like a tournament in a weird way. And every time you submit to a new festival, it's like you've just entered another tournament. So when you go in, it's kind of like this festival has 1,000 submissions, and we're going to watch all of them. At least you take their point value that they are going to watch all of them. They say they will, and they're going to choose from 1,000. They're going to choose the best 100. And now it's like, okay, we're going to go from there. And their festivals that show maybe 100 to 200 films in the actual festival, because it's like a 2-3 week period as a festival, right? So we're just going to go off this one example of this fictional festival I'm just making up as we go along here. But they get 1,000 submissions. We're gonna get it down to 100 because we're gonna only show 10 of these movies.
Wow.
So you got to go from 1,000 down to 10.
It's a scary number.
It's a scary number, and it's like, and you're in that process where you submit it, and the trick is that the earlier you submit it, there's potential for them to watch it earlier and say, oh, that blew me away, it's going right in. As opposed to you submitting it at the end and your movie, number 999 of 1,000, and they've just seen 998 others. It's a lot to follow to be like, well, this movie is better than some other ones I chose, and whatnot. And so, like, if you submit earlier, technically it's an advantage, but mathematically and financially it is too. The later you submit, the more money you have to pay to submit these movies, right? So you get there, and it's just like, it goes from 1,000 to 100. I'm jumping the gun here, right? But 1,000 to 100, you just survived the first round of this tournament. Now you're into 100. Now you're going to go, we're knocking this down from 100 to 50. All right, you make it to the 50, you've just survived the second round of this tournament. And so, like, progressively, if there's great communication, the biggest festivals in the world, there is some communication, but it's not as thorough. Like, they don't tell you every round you go through. But there are several others that will go almost, every 2 weeks, they'll let you know, hey, guess what, you just made to the next round. Guess what, you just made to the next round.
Oh, wow.
So it is it's very nerve-wracking. It's very, like, stress-inducing, where you're sitting there like, man, because they do list, well, in about 2 weeks, we're going to have the official decision of the next round. And you're sitting there for the next 14, 13, 12, 11, 10 days. You keep going down, and you're like, man, I wonder if I made, like, It's day 9.
Sounds stressful.
Yeah, day 9. Did I get cut today and I don't know yet? Or day 9, did they just watch it and they say, okay, for sure he's going to make it?
Yeah.
Like, you have no idea. And then 14 days come up and you get that, oh, guess what? You made it to the next round. And it's like, okay. And again, it starts all over again because, like, I made it to the next round. Oh, man, I hope I make it to the one after that. You keep going through this whole process where finally it gets down to the end where it's like, okay, we went from 50 down to 25, 25 down to 15, 15. These are the final 10 movies that are going to play. Oh, wow, I won. I made it. I survived. That was the same situation here where it was like week by week, every 2 weeks or bi-weekly, you find out. It's like, oh, man, okay, I made it. I'm inching here.
Yeah.
And it's that same thing where we're talking about, it's what you wrote, in your case, Anagnorisis, what you wrote is good. You know it because you put the time and effort into it. You spent, 7 years?
7 years.
Building this thing. You did that. I spent 7 years putting the book together. Another synchronicity, right?
Yeah,
the 7, right?
The 7.
You spend this much time, it's good, but you're sitting there for that validation, and it's like, if they kick you out in the next round, you're like, well, I guess I was only, 2 rounds deep good. I wasn't like Final 4 good or something. Like you start looking at it like that. And when I got the notification that it's like, not only are you selected, you are awarded for this movie. It is, you're right, it's exactly as you said. It's not a case of being like, hey, look, I made something good. It's like, I knew it. Yeah. And finally, I've got the validation to prove it, that I was right this whole time. Because in most cases, nobody else really knows how good you are, right?
Yeah.
And like in a case like you and I know how good of a writer you are. And you know how good of a good storyteller I am. And it's like, we might know that our work respectively is good.
Yeah.
The vast majority of people don't know that. So it's hard to be like, well, I'm not trying to prove this to Daniel. He already knows this. I'm trying to prove to everyone else here who's been a naysayer. Yeah. And that's the situation.
So it's kind of like, it's part of that fighting with one arm tied behind your back. You're like a top tier fighter.
Yes.
But you at the beginning, you still have to fight with the arm tied behind your back. Yeah. So without that validation.
Yeah.
Right. So that at least so it's 17 months. Let's say at least while you're shooting, right, shooting and editing in that 17-month period, you got that one arm tied behind your back. So okay, how did you feel when you got the news? Like,
it's a weird kind of validation because I obviously, you're jovial. You're like, wow, I did this. And it's strange because it wasn't surreal. Like, you'd figure it's like, oh, is this real? Someone pinched me. It was nothing like that. Yeah. I remember just taking it in strides and realizing, first and foremost, I knew it. Okay, I knew it was good. I just didn't know it would be an award-winning good. The second part of that, too, is, you get that call, you get that email, you get the notification that it's like, guess what, you've been selected, you're an award winner for this film. And it's like, I wouldn't say it was definitely not in shock, but it was a case of like, to be completely real with you and to be completely real with everyone listening here, when you dedicate that much of your life to something, you sacrifice so much else. So I didn't get to spend any time with my puppy during that time. I love dogs, love animals. I didn't get to spend any time with my puppy. Didn't get to spend any time with women. Didn't get to go out to any parties. I skipped my birthday, It was like, you don't get any of that stuff because you're working for this thing, this one objective. Yeah. And you finally get it, and it's like, two things happen. It's like, well, all right, like it paid off. The other aspect of it, which is, you see this with a lot of successful people, which is, the personal lives crumble, right? You see a lot of people's personal lives crumble. And I always wondered, like, why or how. And when I went through this, that's when I realized there really isn't anyone to celebrate with. Like, and I'm not saying there isn't anyone. My parents, absolutely. I'd love to celebrate with my parents, my family, my immediate family, yes. Yeah. But I think about it, and it's like, I got the news. Who did I call? It's like there's nobody. I
Yeah.
didn't call anybody. Who did I message? I didn't message anybody. Like it was just, I was like, all right, off to the gym we go because it's the next objective now. Now you just keep. Now I fight for the next thing.
Yeah.
As we were saying the analogy, you have your arm tied behind your back to earn the right to now fight with two arms. Like that's how it was. I finally earned the rights with this award to now have both my arms free to fight. Just went back to training to fight. The biggest notification to everybody was the next morning when they saw it on the social media when we did the press release that the movie was now awarded.
Yeah.
And that was kind of to everyone in the world. It was like, hey, guess what? We just got awarded. There's nobody specifically that I reached out to because there's no celebration.
Yeah.
You know, and that's just what it is. I mean, you trade in your social life, you trade in your pretty much a lot of your internal happiness, your personal life to succeed. And in a lot of cases, if you succeed, there is no personal life there afterwards.
Yeah.
There is no, that stuff doesn't exist anyways.
Man, you know, it's such a deep commentary on what it means to be an artist.
Yes.
Right? And it ties into the psychology of fighting, right? Because as a fighter, like it's not a team sport.
No.
Right?
No.
You are the team.
Yeah.
You're fighting the opponent. When you win, you win.
Absolutely.
So it's not like, you know, it's not the Stanley Cup playoffs. You're not passing the cup around.
No.
Right?
You're right.
It's just you.
Yeah.
So there's like, wow, there's a level of depth to that that's just insane.
Yeah.
That's insane. And I think, it's a hard life to be an artist.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? And so I think he kind of like really drove that point home.
Yeah.
Right? So like to make it to the level that you're at, you're now an award-winning filmmaker.
Yeah, right?
It's hard, right?
Yeah.
But it's hard.
It's very hard.
It's hard.
It's exceptionally hard. And it's like, I know, like, you know, I can imagine you're going through the same thing, right? You know, and I mean, like, at least you did when you're writing it, right? But it's like, you know, your personal life, you don't get to spend as much time with your girlfriend as you want.
It's sacrifice.
You don't get to spend as much time with your family as you want to, you know? And it's like, that's just
4 hours a day.
4 hours a day. It's the big thing, man.
4 hours a
Where
day.
do you
Right?
get the 4 hours from? Where you, I mean, for me, as we touched on round one, I talked about how little I sleep. That's really where I got the 4 hours from, was I steal it from my sleep time. And, you know, as the legendary Arnold Schwarzenegger, you know, once said, the reason why he succeeds is because he learned how to sleep faster. And that's just what I always looked at it like that. It's like, yeah, you know what? I sleep faster than everyone else. That's just what it is.
Yeah.
I only need 3 hours of sleep because it equals everyone else's 8. Like, I get it. That's how I think. So it's like, you sacrifice these things. It's exceptionally difficult. It's damn near impossible to make it. And then I don't know where you make it. But again, the beautiful thing is that it hit me after I did a press release that I finally came to the conclusion that it's like, now everywhere anytime I work on a film, on a set, on television, a web series, creative content, writing, whatever it is, I'm literally an award-winning filmmaker, you know, director, actor, writer. It's like that's going to be a part of my name forever now. Like that's mind-blowing. In that sense, that's mind-blowing to me.
And so that's true to the end of time.
Yes.
That's a permanent truth.
That's a permanent truth,
right?
yeah.
So that will never change. So that's the belt.
Yes, that's the championship belt.
That's a belt.
That's the belt that you work for.
You know,
because it's the same thing with your writing. As soon as you get one, you know, you always hear like Pulitzer Prize or a Nobel Prize, or an award, and it's like, I remember years ago, I want to say like a Jackie Gleason or someone. I'm just making this up now, but it was one of those actors from a time ago, and they had made a comment in an interview that as time progresses, no one cares what you won an Oscar for. It's just the fact that you won the Oscar. Like, you could have won it through attrition. You know, like, you could have just won it by fluke.
Yeah.
But in 10, 15, 20, 30 years, it's like, no, that's Academy Award winner.
Yeah.
You know, because it's attached to you now.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's, in our analogy, going back to it, it's like, that really is the championship belt.
Yeah.
That even if you lose it, you will always be known as, hey, that guy was the undisputed heavyweight champion at one point. That
100%.
guy was the champ. That's the heavyweight champ of the world. You can never take that away from him.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. And so you kind of touched on the solitary aspect of being an artist, and I think one of the best expressions of this was from Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Yeah.
He said sometime, you know how many times I won Father of the Year? None.
Yeah.
Because he's on the road.
Absolutely.
Right? He's moving city to city every night, right? It's a hard life. It's a hard life. So there's a certain loneliness and solitude to it. The other side, where it's a shared experience, I think is the inspiration. Like, so for me, you put out books, right? So you've finished books. Now you've finished a film. You've got an award. So I haven't done any of this. So from my point of view, I'm thinking like, damn, like it's like, okay, you can do this. You can do it, right? So it's like, it is a shared experience because now I'm inspired.
Yeah.
Right. So it's not. So it's a solitary and hard road for you, and you're like, okay, so I'm back at the gym. But now for me, I'm different now.
Yes.
My life is different because now I'm thinking, like when I'm thinking about quitting, it's like no. You can do this.
You can do this. Yeah.
You can do this.
Yeah.
And that's a very that's a shared thing.
Oh, absolutely.
Or it's something, or not. I don't know about shared, but that's something you pass on to other artists.
Yes.
Right. So people who want to follow in your footsteps, it's like you kind of guide them, right? So when another artist is going through their moment of doubt, they'll look at you and they'll be like, okay, keep going.
Yeah.
Right? They'll throw on this podcast and they'll be like, okay, let's get up again tomorrow and let's go.
Yeah.
Right? And then they'll help another artist. So I think that's how it works.
That's the idea, and that's sort of the beauty of it, because like I always look at it too, when you're saying that shared experience thing, it's the whole situation of like, when I was writing, there was no, I mean, obviously you're not going to meet a Stephen King, or maybe you might if you're lucky, right?
Yeah.
But like, I didn't meet a Stephen King. I didn't meet some famed author who came to me and was like, hey, listen, kid, keep on working on it. You give me the pep talk, the pat on the back. It didn't happen. And like, I finished, I did it. And then, of course, one of the great synchronicities we touched on around one, my first book release. Not for the first book I wrote, but it was the first book release I did, like a tour, if you want to call it that. That's where I first met you. Yeah. Right? And like, how crazy is that? And it's like, with the idea that ever since then, I knew you had told me, you spoke, and you were telling me, you want to write. And it was like, man, I'd be happy to help you in any way I can to get you to where you are. Because it's, when you've been in that path, you know what it's like. And it actually is, it's useful not even to have someone, hey, I'm going to pave the road for you, kid. I'm going to make it easy. No. Yeah. Just the simple aspect of like, and how many times did we do this over the year? Over the years, man, where it was like, I would see you and be like, hey, how's the writing going? Yeah. And, you would just be, it's been tough. I've been doing this. Just keep on going with it. Trust me. Just get there. You're going to get there, man. Yeah. Like, it's one of those, it does become shared after a while, because that's when the aspect becomes like, again, I adapted it to screenplay, adapted it to the big screen. And I look at your writing and it's like, hey, you have the ability to do that. And if you do decide to do that, how coincidental, you have an award-winning filmmaker. I got your cell number. I can text you at any moment. Yeah, right? Yeah. No, I think people need like an exemplar for certain things. Like whatever it is. You have a hero or somebody you look up to that becomes your model. Yeah, I think we all do that to a certain extent. And I think when you become an artist, you've now become someone's model. Yeah. Right. So now, even people. So imagine this: people will watch your film who you will never meet or speak to in your life, but you'll have affected their life. Yeah. Right. Because now somebody's gonna be like, man, maybe I want to become a filmmaker. Yeah. And it's possible. It's very possible. It's possible. Not easy. Yeah. By any stretch of the imagination, right? But possible. It's possible. And they'll think about you when they're going through their journey. Yeah. That's amazing. No, of course. That's amazing. And that's the thing, is like, I don't realize until you just said that. You're right, that is mind blowing, because I probably will never meet a lot of these people. Yeah. But to think that it will affect them positively, that's something. 100%. But like the idea that, and I really do like this idea, especially with both of us, because it's a situation where you're writing the same way I did, where there's no like financial backing to help you write.
No.
We don't have like anyone trying to convince us that there's not like a publishing company supporting us to write here.
No.
You're doing this from the ground up. And I think one of the proudest things ever for me before I even got this award, the proudest thing I had was I was telling people before they even saw the movie, it was like, in the world of cinema, I dare someone to find a movie, a feature-length documentary, where one guy did everything that I did.
Yeah.
And when I say a guy, I mean any gender. I want to make that clear.
Yeah.
But like, one person did everything I did. You're not going to find it. And that to me is what I was going to hang my hat on. It was like, the rest of the world might look at it and be like, well, it's not as good as this documentary. Well, yeah, that's because they had a $7 million budget and they had 40 people on the team.
Yeah.
It's like, this one I paid out of pocket and it's one guy on the team. Hey, this thing, that logo, can it be on there? Well, let's check with the legal department.
Yeah.
Do you have his number? Yeah, I do. It's me. I'm the legal department. It's like, that's the situation where I was thinking to myself, try and find that. And now that I've succeeded with this, that's where I think to myself, that might be something crazy in the sense of like, there might be a new, I'm not going to say I'm a trendsetter. I'm definitely not going to say that. But like, the idea that there could be someone out there who's thinking like, hey, I have a limited budget too. And I'm one guy who can do these things.
Yeah.
I mean, he literally did it. One guy on his own did this. I can try that. And it's like, you might end up seeing more people where it's like, you know what, I don't need a studio, or I don't need a distribution company to fund me. I'll figure this out on my own. That guy, and it took me, almost 2 years to do it, but damn it, I did it.
Yeah.
So now it's like, I think there could be more people like that where, someone sees a movie, and as you alluded to earlier, I might not even meet them, but they become inspired to do something.
Yeah.
That could be an inspiration where it's like, man, all I need is that vision, and I'll do it on my own. I'll make my way.
Independence. I think part of why we want to become artists, writers, filmmakers is to be independent.
Yeah.
You get to do whatever you want. Here's a camera, write a script, do whatever you want. Yeah, that's what's more independent than that.
You're
and
totally right.
you took it to the next level by literally doing that.
Yeah.
Right? But that's a dream.
Yeah.
You do whatever you want.
Yeah, it really is. And like director Kevin Smith, who it's weird that like I'm speaking of him as a peer now. That's the weirdest thing to me. But like director Kevin Smith, he once said that, the less money you have from a studio or outside source, the more power you have over your movie.
Yeah.
And it really is the case where it's like, if nobody else funded this, like nobody else helped out per se, I had all the power. And of course, it sounds great. Oh yeah, I'm in control of everything. But as you mentioned earlier, that's the sword of Damocles. Yeah. That's hanging above your head, man. Heavy is the head that wears the crown. It's when you have all the power, now everything rests on you. And it's like, geez, will this succeed or not? And thankfully for me, I have one piece of validation. I'm actually so excited because I think you're going to get validation very soon with yours, man. I cannot wait.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. You gave me, you gave me a bump by inviting me onto your show, right? You don't have to do this. Yeah. We kind of clicked and it worked, but you didn't have to do this, right? Because you did me a favor, right? So I get that. So it's like, yeah, man, absolutely. Yeah. So I really appreciate it. And I can't thank you enough.
No, man, thank you. And of course, before we wrap things up, we got to ask right now, we got to let everybody know, where can they find you? I know you really...
Yeah, I'm still the ghost.
Yeah, you're kind of on the down low when it comes to social media, but where are you?
Well, no, I'm just before I appear on the scene, the book has to be perfect. But you can get a few glimpses of me on Instagram. It's Scarch, SCARCH_1. But I will be around soon.
Yes.
So
yeah, and we're gonna try and get that handle, social media handle, wherever you're listening to this right now. We're gonna try and get it posted so you can follow this guy, check him out, check out his work. I believe in his work. I believe great things are coming for you, man.
Thank you so much. That, man. Congratulations on the award.
Thank you so much.
The Toronto Independent Film Festival, best documentary. Man, I'm just like, wow.
Yeah.
For me, I'm kind of like, I'm fanning out here, so I'm sorry about that.
Enough of that.
But thank you. Congratulations, man.
Thank you so much, man. And again, to all of you listening, thank you for tuning in. This was our master class, round 2 on writing and adaptation. Of course, listen to all the other episodes. They're companion episodes to The Show Must Go On, the movie, which will be coming out later 2021, everywhere around the world, hopefully. But until then, we're here from Casa del Scarcello, as I like to call it here.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you so much again.
Thank
you
you
to all of you listening. And as always, no matter what happens in life, not only do you keep on fighting, you keep on working, but
the show must go on.
You said it. Thank you.